book of the Bloodlines series, and the very first page, it just jumps right out. The Sydney's history teacher slash witch teacher, but no one really knows about that except for her, Adrian, and of course the teacher, calls her up immediately, like wakes her up at like 3 in the morning and just asks her a very personal question, which I don't want to just give it away, so I'm not going to say it, but just asks her a very personal question, tells her to get dressed. She meets her in the dorm lobby and wishes her away. This is like all like right in the middle of the night, and makes her go to, or drives her to the middle of the forest, or I'm sorry, not forest, desert, because they're in Palm Springs, California. Why did I just say forest? I have no idea, sorry about that. And makes her cast a spell that only she could cast, because she's young enough and, well, preserved enough, I could say, and to track an evil witch, which is her teacher's sister, who is 10 years older than her sister, but looks 10 years younger because she's feeding off of the souls of young witches that aren't wanting to be witches, so they're not practicing, so they're not strong enough. And Sydney here is like very like religious, and I'm kind of just hanging on. As soon as I say that, I'm kind of hanging on to my cross. But so she kind of had a conflict of practicing witchcraft, but she wants to also protect her friends. So she thinks, like, in her brain, she's worked it out that if it's defense and being able to protect, she finds nothing wrong with it. But when it comes to actually going out to somebody and pursuing that someone and hurting that someone, then that's where she's going to draw the line. But once she realizes that this woman is taking the souls out of young girls and putting them in comas, making them look like grandmas at 17, 16, then she's like, yeah, I can't let that happen. I have to stop her. So she ends up learning a whole bunch of spells. She does this spell where she brings like a dragon to life, and that animal is supposed to protect her, and ends up going on this, like, not dates, but like this mission with Adrian, and her and Adrian like kind of hooks up in this hotel or bed and breakfast, and the person who works at the bed and breakfast ends up being the bad person that they're trying to find. They just don't know it yet. So when they finally figure that out, they track her to the house, her history teacher's house, and when they find her there instead of the sister, they kind of had this confusing moment, but then realize that she's the one who's actually going around the state of California or LA area, and taking the souls out of all these girls and taking their power and their youth. And so they end up like pushing her down the stairs to the basement, and the house ends up being blown up, and they find her teacher in the field. So that ends up being all okay because that mission's done, and she finally admits her feelings towards Adrian. So she ends up meeting Adrian in a museum, and they end up saying, oh, finally they are together. And then she goes back to her dorm after the day, and ends up being like midnight, so she gets busted for that and gets detention for that, and finds out that her little sister, who she was originally trying to keep away from this mission to protect her, and ends up coming into the mission. So she ends up being roommates with her, so she has to keep all of her friendships with the Dumpiers and the vampires on the DL, and especially her relationship with Adrian. But So then they're trying to figure that one out, but that kind of leads into the next book that I will review later. But backtracking, the two bodyguards for Jill ends up in a relationship, but then ends up breaking up. And so the main bodyguard for Jill always had a crush for Jill. Jill being like the vampire that they're all protecting. And it turns out that Jill also likes him. So Sydney was trying to like getting them together, saying like, you guys should just be happy, just be together already. So that plays out very like agitating because neither one of them like wants to, like, their relationship is bodyguard person who's being guarded, so they don't want to complicate that, and like trying to get them together is really agitating. And that is about it on all the love stories. Like I said, this book, the action in this book, besides hunting down the witch, there's not that much action. It's more towards based on the love triangles and the love stories and kind of pushing that side along. So it took me a little longer to read this book, but I promise it is just as good. And I cannot wait until how this series plays out. I've had this series on my shelf for as long as I have had the Vampire Academy on the shelf, and I've been needing to read this, and I cannot wait to finish it. And I highly suggest the Bloodline Diaries or Bloodline series. Even if you didn't read the Vampire Academy series, you won't really even need to, because this is a story in itself, and it kind of backtracks. Each one of these books, the first general two chapters are backtrackings to tell you what happened in the previous books. So that is definitely why I said it was kind of a slow start for me. But considering that this is already the third book, I highly suggest this book series, and if Amazon it, go to your local bookshop, anywhere you could get your hands on this book series and on this author. Highly suggest it. Till next time, see you later. Bye.